love. Schoolgirls were not to know what men and women really did together. But I knew, and I didn't want it taken away from me. I also knew what the terrible consequences would be if we were to be discovered. Not just for me, but for him too. In his family, there were complex laws that governed who belonged to whom, which were far beyond my naive understanding. Yet we were beautiful together. We fitted. I remember our fingers entwined, mine luminous pale, his velvet dark. A perfect chiaroscuro. I was only a girl. I didn't realize then that when two people make love together, impassioned, concentrated love, there is a contract made. Call it a spiritual vow. What I mean to say is that one can only truly give of themselves to another if they are willing to bear the fruit of that union. And I don't just mean in the biological sense, although I learnt about that only too well. I mean that something is made by and between lovers so precious that they are rendered vulnerable, completely vulnerable, to that precious thing breaking. I knew nothing of this when I loved Sol. I was just being carried on the wings of something much larger than myself. Loving Sol felt right. Now that my body is softer, like worn velvet, more slow, less mine, more mine, I look back and know that we were only learning. We were novices at sex, at love, at being ourselves. But we were gentle and kind and reverent with each other. And we laughed. We were innocent to the consequences of our being together, of being drawn to each other's honey. Mother started beekeeping when Father got ill. A bout of influenza that left him so depleted, it was months before he could get through a day's work without shaking, without stopping to sit down every half hour. So, Sol and I must have been about 13 years old. For a good while, Mother's honey was in high demand, and it helped tide things over while Father was recovering. Her Hog Bay honey was not sold in the Hog Bay store. Our neighbours would come to the house directly to buy honey. Soon enough, Mother was also selling honey biscuits, honey cake, and honey apple tarts from the kitchen door, just about as soon as they came out of the oven. She became known simply as the Honey Lady. In my memory of the honey harvest of late summer, Sol is always there. He'd wander over from his family's farm, which neighboured ours, but was a good hour's walk away, in his bare feet, with his skinny yellow dog, Jem, in tow. I remember Sol as a streak of blue. I don't know why. Perhaps because his shirt was always blue, or perhaps I have gazed out at this ocean for so many years that somehow glinting blue out there and Sol, dear Sol, have become one and the same. He is always moving, always mercurial, always on the edge of things, and blue, blue, blue. It is later in the beekeeping years that I remember most clearly. I would find Sol waiting on the back doorstep in the shade of morning, drawing in the dirt with a piece of fencing wire which had a small loop at one end and was bent into a curve so that when he wasn't using it, he could hang it round his neck for safekeeping. I would bring him a steaming cup of tea, which he gulped down in 3 big slurps before springing to his feet and saying something like, "Thank you, gorgeous," while winking at me in my long sleeves and baggy trousers, and then smoothing over his inscriptions on the ground with his heel. Sol never wore anything but his regular clothes when bee handling, his frayed straw hat pulled down so low as to almost cover his eyes. And I only saw him get stung once. It was right on the chest, under his shirt, and I remember that all morning before the sting, Sol had been in a particularly bad mood. The bees were cross that day too, butting against us.